internets, Sir Mutton Chops here. We're back in Dreadlands for the last time, well, for a while, and we're going to finish things up right. We've got a druid named Ipun, a necromancer, Death Dove, obviously, from previous footage, and Tolsimer as well, our ranger, and myself, the monk. An adequate monk, I guess. I guess I'm just really a cameraman with DPS, but yeah, I try. And we're going to pick up a bard here soon enough, named Tambourine. So we should be all set. I'm going to have Bard Haste, we're going to have the Necromancer Fear, and we have either the Druid or the Ranger to snare the mob. So everything's pretty much set. Don't really need heals in this instance, so if everyone just stays on their toes, we should be fine. And that is pretty much how things are going to roll. We're going to have this wolf pack going on. Pretty cool. As long as you don't run into a city with this illusion, you should be fine. I'm not sure if there are areas where you can go. I think there are, because people do use wolf form to negate certain faction issues. I know that's possibly used with the monk epic. I'm not too sure. Maybe it's just the robe of the lost circle. But anyhow, we're in wolf form and everything's taking shape. I'm not going to be pulling in this footage, unfortunately. And I did have some footage, very, very little bit of footage of me pulling in Dreadlands. But unfortunately, the whole thing is that the group mates want the experience, and you gotta keep it coming. And sometimes when I have fraps running, especially in the past, for some reason, it just made everything kind of go a little bit slower, kind of noticeably, and it was very hard to maintain some kind of presence within group and have conversations and pull and do all that nonsense. So yeah, I'm not too sure if there's going to be much of that to show for, but well, we've got a group here, and that's all that really matters. We've got Tolsimer pulling. I think I do have some future footage of a monk pulling, and that should be interesting to see. He was even lower level than me, so I don't know. I gotta get it together and start pulling here. Just looking back on this footage, it's like it's your job. It's what you do. But well, I'm learning. I'm learning. These days, it's not too hard. I enjoy doing it. But yeah, anyway, I want to talk about a few things because I was reading up on the forums a couple really interesting threads that caught my eye. And one of them was about the things that were present in classic Everquest that aren't here on P99. And I forgot about most of these, and some of these I maybe thought were there, but aren't. I guess that's like a placebo effect or something. But that one being night blindness. Now, apparently that's not on this server, and I was under the impression that my human monk was in fact blind. And that's why I've been carrying around a GLS all this time. And yeah, I guess I just don't have quite a good memory. Apparently, it's even worse than what it is these days. So I don't know. Maybe it's because I have light coming in through my window and it's reflecting off the screen and I can't see sometimes and it's frustrating. But I can't imagine how much worse it could possibly get. I guess it could get a little darker, but oh my god. that's almost a game changer. But, well, whatever. We'll see if they decide to roll back and make it the way it was. It seems to be the case that's going to be a goal. So for anyone out there who's going to roll a human, a barbarian, or an erudite, you might want to get on that, because sooner or later that is going to change. That little caveat is going to be entirely different, and you're going to have to deal with night blindness, which is just not fun. It really just renders you immobile sometimes, unless you know your way around the zones, which I guess a lot of people who come back would. But you do forget certain areas and certain things and where mobs path. So that should be interesting. Another thing is that Sergeant Slate cannot be trained to the tunnels on this server. Apparently in the past there was some problems with this, with griefers and douchebags. Yes, douchebags have existed for a long time on this server. I'm not too sure if those people are around specifically, but I guess what happened was there were enough people that were training Sergeant Slate to the tunnel, so anyone who had bad faction with the Freeport militia would get their ass handed to them in short form. So I don't know. I don't think that's really a bad thing. It would be nice if people just had the integrity to not do something like that. At least try to minimize it to one time throughout your whole EverQuest career. But well, that's just not the case, I guess. Yeah. So that was it's a pretty interesting thread. I'm gonna go ahead and probably link it to the description below, because I don't know. It kind of got me giddy. I didn't think about a lot of these things. I've kind of forgotten about them, to be honest, because I was just so immersed in this game and how similar Project 99.9 is to classic EverQuest that I really just overlooked the few discrepancies that are out there, like not being able to drop your coins on the ground. That one's a pretty big one. I remember people would spell their names out or other things, or they'd leave a little trail of cookie crumbs for you to follow them. And I think it would add to the lag, though. Obviously, I remember having lots of corpses around would definitely increase lag, but I think dropping coins would do it as well, so that may be a problem. But I don't know. I haven't really had lag issues on the server for the most part, so we'll see how that works out. It would be kind of fun, although I wouldn't do it for ghetto transfers. Dropping an item or something on the ground is fine, and I do that a lot. And I haven't even actually had any failures with that, like I haven't dropped an item and then switched the character on and then come back and have the item not be there, or have it poof, or have somebody steal it. All the time, it's worked. I am an advocate of it, especially for the hours that I play EverQuest. God, sometimes it's like there's no one on, or there's that one guy, but you think you remember his name, and he's kind of shady. So you're like, nah, I'm not having any of that. I'm not going to risk it. I'd rather battle the elements and let the EverQuest gods do their bidding and see how I fare. But yeah, that's one of the things that I look forward to. Another one that I kind of made self-enforced was the spell book. On this server, you could just sit down, your mana will go up as if you're meditating, because you are meditating. In Classic EverQuest, I can't remember what level it was. I want to say it was 30 or 35 for Priest and Pure Casters. That was the level where you could sit down and not have Book in the Face. Now, everyone has to remember Book in the Face. Unless you played with Melee or a hybrid or what have you, you remember the woes of playing EverQuest and not being able to see anything around you. It really did. I guess it was like night blindness, but permanent. Like, whenever you wanted mana, you had to pretty much make yourself vulnerable to the world around you. You did have this one little window in your UI, looking at your inventory and whatnot, that you could see your character. It's like a vanity piece. It's a mirror of sorts, and you could see behind yourself. But that's all you could see. Not a lot going on there for a perspective. So a lot of people, what they would do if they were duoing, they would sit back to back so that both people could see basically in front of the other person, or behind the other person, but in front of themselves, if that makes any sense. And then if you played with 4 people, you could all sit in a T shape and get a pretty good view of what's coming at you, and that would pretty much safeguard you from any wandering mobs, because there were quite a few. Otherwise, you'd have to sit along a wall, which a lot of people did utilize in the past. So I don't know. UI is an issue on this server. I believe the one that's on here is Velios. I do miss the little vanity window where I could see myself. That I do miss that. I'm a bit vain. I do like looking at my character. But there's F9, and I do like the hot bar area where all the hotkeys are. Having more than, say, 6 really does make a difference, especially as a monk, where you have so many abilities and not a lot of space for them, even with as many as there are. I think there's 10. Yeah, there's 10. I could count. And you can obviously manage all your boxes and change the dimensions of them. The buff box is a huge one. My God, I remember back in the day, if you got shaman buffs, it would take up, like, I don't know, at least 25% of your screen. Maybe I'm exaggerating there, but you could not see anything. It was very difficult. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. I wonder if they're ever gonna be able to do that. I know that's probably gonna be very difficult, but yeah, that's interesting. Another one that's really big is item linking. On this server, we have item linking. That did not exist in Classic. If it did, it came way later in Velios or something. Sometime I was not around. There is this foggy area, actually, of what is Classic, because there's this zone near Warrens. I don't even know if that zone is Classic, but the zone is called Stonebrunt Mountains. And I remember I was on this other EQ emulated forum like a couple years back, at least 2 or 3 years back, and there was a debate about whether or not this was actually a classic zone, because a lot of people liked it. A lot of people liked Warrens, and that's on Erudin for those of you who aren't aware of that. Um, yeah, apparently, I think, if my memory serves me right, and it may not, but I believe Stoneburnt Mountains is technically classic. It did not, it was not released when Lukeland came out. It came sometime between Velios and Lukeland, so technically it's still considered classic in most people's minds. So I don't know. I have seen screenshots of the zone. I have not seen much other than that. I haven't seen any footage out there. If anyone has a link to footage from either Warrens or Stonebrunt, that'll be interesting to look at. I'm sure there's another emulated server out there that has that available to it, like EQ Mac or whatnot. But I don't know. Maybe I don't want to see that. I don't like spoilers. I haven't looked at too much of Velios. That's going to be entirely new to me. For the most part, I have seen like the parts of the Dwarven City and whatnot, but I really do try to keep myself a virgin to that expansion, so that when I go, stumbling into it, I guess I'll die more. I've died enough in these expansions, but well, I guess it's entertaining somewhat, especially looking back on it. But that still should be interesting to see if that's included on this server. And there was also talk on this server of having certain other planes released that would change things later on, but they would still kind of keep in the whole spirit of classic Everquest. Because it is going to come to an end, this server. I mean, we can all see it. Velios is coming eventually, and then from then on, what do you do, So there's talk about possibly having another server. I don't want to get ahead of myself and say that this is actually going to happen, but it's kind of something that's been thought about. There's been a little bit of hints at it, where this alternative server you could, in theory, switch your character to if you wanted to, and then that server would be kind of tailor fit with new zones that perhaps aren't classic but are still in the same spirit. A lot of people liked some of those zones, so that should be interesting to see. And then the original server would stay as is for those of you who are purists, or just make a lot of alts. I know I had altitis way back when. I still have tons of alts now, but haven't been able to give them a lot of time. I only have enough for a couple of addictions. But yeah, that's certainly an interesting idea. And well, let's try to get back up on topic. I'm going way off into left field, but yeah, there are a couple other things as well. You'll notice on this server we have a blue bar that overlaps the yellow experience bar, indicating a more specific amount of experience. This is classic, if I remember right. It's a classic feature, but I believe it came out in Knark or a little bit after that. I'm not too sure, but if my memory serves me right, it is actually classic. So it's not all game breaking, and I actually kind of like being able to know that I'm getting at least some experience from these light blue mobs that are still whooping my ass. But yeah, that's another thing you might notice. One last bit that I remember being in Classic, and noticeably not on this server, is that in Classic you could give an NPC an item, most any NPC an item, and then kill it, and the item would be on the mob, be it coin, random rusty sword, or something really cool for newbies that are just killing random mobs there in the newbie yard. You can't do that on this server, and I'm kind of iffy on that whole thing, because I remember just like a couple weeks ago I was wandering through Freeport, even though I aggro most everything there. I was killing a few guards, and all of the guards around there were wielding mandolins. So apparently somebody got really bored and decided to go ahead and hand over a bunch of mandolins to the Freeport militia and turn them into rock stars. So you can give mobs, certain mobs, items on this server, I think. I'm not too sure. It might have been a GM. I have really no idea. But you can't do it to your regular everyday mob out there. I've tried it before. It was a loophole in Classic for monks. You give all your GP and your heavy items to a certain mob that's static. You go over and you kill it when you're done hunting. You loot it. Unless somebody else killed and looted it, you're going to have everything there. And then you just go on to town and cash in all your goods and whatnot. So yeah, that is an issue on this server. It's especially for people who are watching their weight, such as monks. But yeah, whatever. I can live with it. It's not game breaking. And yeah, so along the same lines, I also want to talk about early misconceptions in Classic Everquest. and I had a lot of them starting out. Really did not understand this game because it is a realistic game. It's based on reality, obviously. You have gravity, you have certain things like that. Not all of it is exactly correct. You can't, safe fall in real life off a mountain and survive. You just can't do it. It would be kind of cool if you could, but well, you just can't. And yeah, you could do that on this server. Now, a couple other things that are really kind of odd about EverQuest, and I remember when I first played, I noticed it, is that line of sight. Yeah, there's nothing quite like going into East Common Lands as a newbie and thinking, oh, I'm safe from Mr. Griffin. I'm just going to go run and hide inside this building, this inn where these NPCs are, and it never attacks them. So you go and you hide in there and you're ducking behind the counter, and you've got your little rusty sword in hand, and all of a sudden you get owned up on. And of course the guards aren't there to help you because some bastard killed them, and well, I shouldn't say that because I am the bastard on this server that kills the guards, even when I really don't have to anymore. It's just kind of fun. But hey, I exonerate myself because most of the people that play on this server make alts and then they just twink the hell out of them. So I consider it an equal playing field. If you have a lot of items and you're making it really easy for yourself, me killing the guard just makes it harder on you, and I'm adding to your classic experience because now it's harder for you, and you're welcome. So if you go into East Common Lands and the guards aren't up, it's probably my fault or the fault of like one or two other people because well, I like killing them. They're corrupt and they must die, and that's just a fact. I'm here to be a hero, and that's what I do. But yeah, the illusion of safety, that was very much prevalent in EverQuest. I remember even when Kunar came out, there were still newbies to the game, and I remember this one person thought that swimming in the river in Furonia Bay, from the last footage you'll actually even be able to see that river, would protect them from drachnids. That drachnids wouldn't be able to see them in the river. And that seems plausible in real life. I mean, you can, be very tactical and try to avoid people. I don't know if there are any stalkers out there that are like that, but I sure hope not. But yeah, that's something you could do in real life if you so choose. But in this game, no. You will get owned up on, you will die miserably, and then you'll have a wonderful corpse run. So you don't want to do that. But you would think that would be a plausible idea, that you could actually do that. You go hide behind a tree, maybe, But not the case. Not the case at all. And one of the early mistakes that I had was believing that I could outrun a mob. I didn't think that they had like permanent aggro, that if you attacked it, it would follow you until you died or till you zoned. I didn't have that kind of thinking. I didn't really play too many video games, well, computer games before that. I played video games, but not a lot of computer games. So yeah, that idea didn't make sense to me. So I would attack a mob and then run, a good distance, maybe 30 seconds, and then turn around and find the mob right there on me, because I never really played an F9 way back when. Just didn't. I don't know why. Just one of my things, but yeah, from that point on, I had to realize that, well, you're going to have to zone or go to a guard or hope somebody saves your arse, because that mob is not going to forget. It's an elephant, basically. Never forgets, and that's basically what happened. Didn't forget, I died, and thankfully remembered, and chose to live rather than die, so I had to zone a lot, as I do on this server. But thankfully I have Feigned Death now to save me from all that embarrassment. But yeah, anyway, just thought I'd talk about all that stuff. It's still on this server. I have met a few actual real newbies. That was actually very cool to to see. They didn't know how to move or target. I remember I tried to give them something. Their friend was present, so thankfully I gave it to their friend, and then their friend gave it to them. But I tried to give it to them, and they didn't know to press the accept button on the transfer UI thing, whatever that is. So yeah, that was pretty interesting. I don't know if the person's still on the server. I would assume that they remade a character. They decided to go with a different class, as most people did when they first played EverQuest. We all had that first character that we did, be it like a warrior or something. We had misconceptions about classes. We thought they could do certain things, or like I thought clerics could solo, and arguably they could if need be. They could go against some undead, but that's not really what they were built for. This game was very much an inclusive game. You needed other people to work with, and that's why it's well, it's very important that everyone know their role and know how to play it. And that, well, you throw in PvP with that, and everything just kind of gets crazy. And then you throw in raiding, and it just gets all the more bizarre. And there's a lot of tricks to each class, so that's a very interesting part of EverQuest that drew me to it. But yeah, we all had that first class, that first race that we chose that didn't work out too well. I would think that there wouldn't be very many people out there that actually got their class in the first go, but you know, maybe so. Maybe somebody just played it through and they said, you know what, this isn't for me, but let me just keep trying it. Let me see how this goes, and maybe I'll stop dying. That's maybe what I've been doing with this monk. I don't know. But everything's going good. I do like this zone. We're having fun. This will be the last bit from Dreadlands for a little while. But very cool to be in wolf form. I enjoyed a lot of it. I don't know if it increases your speed. I think it's just for cool factor points. But yeah, a lot of fun. And we're still owning up on these mobs. No drachnids this time. We do get some of those in the future. I may include some of that footage. They're a little peskery. I'll say that. Not a lot of fun to deal with. They are casters, and it's better just to take melees out, especially if you're going to be doing something like this with this kind of setup. It just makes sense. And we don't have any heals, so yeah. I mean, I guess our druid could do some spot heals, but really we want to keep everything just going along. And he'd be better off doing some damage. So that's all well and good. And thankfully we didn't get any of this bit of fighting. And yeah. I don't know if I looted anything through all this. I wasn't really paying attention. I got lost in my rambling, but well, yeah, it's still fun nonetheless. I don't really loot a lot. People get kind of perturbed with me. They get a little bit annoyed because it is kind of a pride issue, I guess. Some people, I don't know, they don't want to loot, or they do loot, and then there's those people that loot before the mob even drops. It seems like, but yeah, I guess that's kind of like. I don't know. I was reading up on this thing about Netflix and how they let their employees have full vacation, and I just thought that was amazing. You know, they didn't put any limits on them, but it was about responsibility. If you have your work done, obviously you can take all the days off you want, but nobody wants to be that guy that's weighing everyone else down. You know, he shows up like a couple times, and obviously you're going to get fired. But yeah, I like that idea. I don't like this whole thing where, you know, use it or lose it, where if you have sick days, you know, you might as well take off 3 days because you didn't get to use your you know, you didn't get sick throughout the whole year. I don't think that makes any sense. And neither does it have to have an employee come in sick. That's always wonderful. Somebody hacking up a lung right next to you. Yeah. Stay away from my keyboard. That's all I got to say. Stay away from my keyboard. I don't like you. I don't like you right now. Come back in a few days. We'll talk. But for now, you are the enemy, and I will own you. Anyway, friends, enemies, and coworkers aside, all that nonsense, we're about done here with Dreadlands. Going to move on, head on to West Common Lands, and then Soul Dungeon B. That should be pretty interesting. But right now, I've got my Lev Cloak. It is a beautiful thing. No more trying to swim up and derp out onto the boat. And I'm walking on water. You can call me Jesus. So, yeah, I'll see y'all later.